The bleeding had finally stopped, but the cold remained. It wasn't just the chill of the marble floors at Beacon Hill Medical Center. It was the bone-deep cold of absolute isolation. My name is Harper Sterling, and only 2 weeks ago, I seemed to have everything. A baby growing inside me, a father who loved me more than life itself, and a home in Chestnut Hill that I always believed was the safest place on earth. But today, I have nothing. 3 days ago, I underwent an emergency procedure. The doctors called it a medical tragedy, but I call it the day I lost my first child. And cruelly, it happened only days after the funeral of my father, Robert Sterling. I was trying to push myself up from the wheelchair in the hospital lobby, the stitches from my surgery pulsing with pain that felt like it was tearing me apart. That was when Caleb Vance appeared. Caleb is my stepbrother, the son of my stepmother. He didn't run over to help me. He didn't show a shred of concern. He stood there in a bespoke charcoal wool coat that fit him perfectly, looking terrifyingly pristine amidst the hospital's smell of antiseptic. He looked down at me, not with the eyes of a brother, but with the eyes of a predator watching a wounded animal. He stepped into the elevator with me. When the metal doors slid shut, trapping the two of us in that small space, the polite social smile on his lips vanished instantly. "Choose, Harper." Caleb's voice resonated, soft but sharp as a scalpel. "Take the money or get out." He pulled a thick envelope from his breast pocket and shoved it into my hand. Inside were legal papers and a stack of cash. "Sign the waiver for the inheritance right now," he whispered, leaning in close to my ear. "And I will give you $10,000, cash, enough for you to start over somewhere far away, somewhere warmer than Boston." I felt my chest tighten. "Caleb, what are you talking about? Dad left the company and the house to me. That was his dying wish." Caleb laughed, a dry, hollow sound. "His wish? That will you think is real?" "It doesn't exist. Dad signed a new will 2 weeks before he died. He left the entire Sterling Foundation's ink to my mother and me." He paused, watching the shock wash over my face, then delivered a psychological blow. "He said you were too weak, Harper, that you were too busy with your unlucky pregnancy to run a company. Dad wrote you off." "You are lying," I hissed, trying to keep my voice steady despite my shaking hands. "I want to speak to a lawyer." Caleb's face hardened. The veneer of the gentleman dropped completely. He backed me into the corner of the elevator. "You have 24 hours. If you are still lingering around the estate, I cannot guarantee your surgical wounds will heal properly. Accidents happen, Harper, especially to single, sickly women." The elevator doors opened. Caleb adjusted his collar and walked out as if nothing had happened, leaving me alone with a rising tide of fear. But the worst was yet to come. I took a taxi back to the family estate. It had started to snow, the gray November flakes coating the city of Boston in a mourning shroud. When the car pulled up to the familiar iron gates of the Sterling estate, I realized my remote clicker no longer worked. The gate codes had been changed. The locks on the front door were new, and there, right on the front lawn, was my entire life, discarded. Clothes, books, family photo albums, everything was scattered, soaked through by the freezing snow. The neighbor's automatic sprinklers had drenched everything before the temperature dropped, turning my memories into a frozen pile of trash. I limped through the pedestrian side gate, the pain from my surgery making every step a torture session. I dropped to my knees amidst the mess. My heart shattered when I saw my mother's jewelry box, my birth mother, who died when I was 7. The exquisite mahogany box had been smashed. It lay flattened on the driveway, as if someone had intentionally driven a car over it. The strands of pearls my mother loved most had burst open, the white gems scattered across the black asphalt, looking like frozen tears. I picked them up one by one, my fingers numb from the cold, my tears mixing with the snow. I had no home. I had no family. Caleb and his mother, Eleanor Vance, had taken everything. "This isn't right, Harper. This is absolutely wrong." I looked up. An ancient Buick was idling at the curb. The person stepping out was Lorraine West, or, as I affectionately called her, Rainey. She was 73 years old, my father's former chief accountant, and the most loyal friend he ever had. Rainey didn't care about her expensive coat or the biting wind. She rushed over, kneeling beside me in the snow, her wrinkled but warm hands gripping my shoulders tight. "Your father would never do this to you," Rainey said, her voice shaking with rage as she glared at the dark house where Caleb was now the master. "I knew Robert Sterling his whole life. He loved you more than anything." "They have papers, Rainey," I sobbed, feeling despair swallow me whole. "They said Dad changed the will." Rainey pulled me up, her eyes sharp as razors, the eyes of a woman who had spent a lifetime exposing financial fraud. "Papers can be forged, Harper, but a father's love cannot." She helped me into her warm Buick. As we drove away, leaving the house and the fragments of my life behind, Rainey looked at me in the rearview mirror. "You rest now. Tonight, no more sad talk," she said firmly. "But tomorrow? Tomorrow, I am pulling the old files. I still have the access codes to the company's accounting system. If Caleb Vance thinks he can outsmart an old lady who used to be a forensic accountant, he has made the biggest mistake of his life." I leaned my head against the cold window. In the darkness, a fragile spark of hope began to ignite. They had taken everything from me, but they forgot one thing. I am the daughter of Robert Sterling, and I will not go down without a fight. The morning light flooded into Lorraine West's small apartment in Brookline, carrying the scent of brewed coffee and toast, but it couldn't chase away the darkness clouding my mind. Last night, I had slept fitfully on her sofa, dreaming that my father was trying to tell me something, but his voice was drowned out by Caleb Vance's cold laughter. We started the day not with breakfast, but with a war. Our first stop was the Boston Police Department. Detective Sarah Mercer was a tough woman with sharp eyes that seemed to have seen too much of humanity's dark side. She listened as I explained the eviction and Caleb's threats, but she didn't write anything down. "Miss Sterling," Detective Mercer said, her voice calm to the point of being irritating. "I received a call from the family of Eleanor Vance this morning. They said you were going through a severe mental crisis following your miscarriage. They said you might make wild accusations." I froze. Caleb and Eleanor were one step ahead. They were using my own trauma as a weapon against me. They were gaslighting everyone, painting me as a hysterical, unstable woman in the eyes of the law. "They are lying," I countered, my voice shaking with anger. "They changed the locks. They destroyed my property." "That is a civil dispute, Miss Sterling," Mercer sighed. "Without evidence of actual physical violence or a direct threat to life, the police cannot intervene in family matters." We left the station in utter frustration, but Rainey was not someone who gave up easily. "The police need hard proof," Rainey said as we sat in her Buick. "Fine, I will give them numbers. Numbers never lie." Back at the apartment, Rainey opened her ancient laptop. She was a legend in the world of forensic accounting. Her wrinkled fingers flew across the keyboard with astonishing speed. She used old access codes that my father had never changed to breach the servers of Sterling Foundations, Inc. 2 hours later, Rainey's face went pale. "Dear God," she whispered. "Harper, come look at this." On the screen were rows of complex transactions. "Caleb Vance has been bleeding the company dry for the last 5 years, Rainey explained, pointing at the data streams. "He created shell companies, filing false invoices for construction materials that were never delivered. But this is worse." She opened another file. "He is stealing from the employee pension fund, the foremen, the bricklayers who worked for your father for 30 years. Their retirement money has evaporated. He used that money to gamble and fund his lavish lifestyle." My blood boiled. My father loved his employees like family. This wasn't just theft, it was betrayal. "But why didn't Dad notice?" I asked. "Maybe he did," Rainey speculated. "Look here. 6 months ago, your father hired an independent auditing firm, but that report was never released. And right after that, his health began to decline rapidly." A terrifying thought flashed through my mind. I remembered visiting Dad in the hospital. He always complained about the bitter taste in the morning coffee that Eleanor Vance made for him. "I need to see Dr. Liam Carter," I said, standing up abruptly. Dr. Liam Carter met me at his private office after his shift. He looked at me with concern, but when I presented my suspicions, he didn't dismiss them like Detective Mercer had. "I did see something strange in Robert Sterling's blood work the day he died," Liam confessed, pulling up the medical records on his tablet. His digoxin levels were unusually high, but because he had a history of heart disease and was on heart medication, the medical board concluded it was poor absorption leading to natural toxicity. What if someone was intentionally increasing the dose? I asked, my voice cracking. Liam was silent for a long moment. Digoxin is a dangerous drug. If you overdose just a little bit every day, it causes symptoms exactly like natural heart failure. Nausea, dizziness, arrhythmia. It is a perfect murder weapon if no one suspects foul play to order a full autopsy. The final piece of the puzzle fell into place. Caleb stole the money. Dad found out. Eleanor and Caleb poisoned him to silence him before he could release the audit report or change the will. We need the original evidence, I told Rainey as we left the hospital. The independent audit report my father hired, and maybe the pill bottles they switched. Where are they? Rainey asked. In the secret safe, I remembered. Dad had a safe room behind the fireplace in his study, but I don't know the combination. There's only one way to find out, Rainey said, gripping the steering wheel. That night, we returned to the Sterling estate. We didn't go through the front gate. I led Rainey around the back to an old basement window with a broken latch that I used to sneak out of when I was a teenager. The darkness in the basement was thick and cold. The smell of mold and old wood filled my nose. My heart hammered against my ribs like it wanted to explode. We crept up the wooden stairs leading to the first floor. The house was terrifyingly quiet. Moonlight filtered through the curtains, casting long, ghostly shadows on the floor. We had just set foot in the hallway leading to the study when the sound of the front door lock clicking open echoed through the house. Rainey and I froze. "Quick in here," I whispered, pulling Rainey into the large coat closet in the hallway where my father used to hang his winter coats. Just as the closet door clicked shut, the hallway lights flickered on. "Babe, I promised we would pop champagne," a young woman's whining voice rang out. It was Kinsley, Caleb's Instagram model girlfriend. "There will be a party, babe," Caleb's voice replied, slurring with drunkenness. His heavy footsteps pounded on the hardwood floor, getting closer and closer to where we were hiding. "As soon as I sell this damn company to the competitors, $30 million cash, and we will vanish from this freezing city." I peeked through the narrow slats of the closet door. Caleb was standing right in front of us, only a few feet away. He was leaning against the wall, holding a bottle of liquor. "What about the old man's daughter?" Kinsley asked. "Harper? Is she going to cause trouble?" Caleb smirked, a smile that sent ice through my veins. "Harper? She is finished. My mother took care of that. Just like she took care of her 3 previous husbands. No one survives getting in the way of Eleanor Vance." My breath caught in my throat. Rainey squeezed my hand in the dark to reassure me. We were standing in the tiger's den, and we had just heard the most terrifying confession. Eleanor wasn't just a cruel stepmother. She was a serial killer, and if Caleb opened this closet door, we would be the next victims. I held my breath until my lungs burned. Inside the cramped coat closet, the scent of cedar and my father's old wool coats surrounded me, a cruel reminder of the man who was gone. Just inches away, separated only by a thin, louvered door, Caleb Vance stood laughing. "Another drink, babe?" Kinsley asked, her voice drifting toward the kitchen. "Yeah, make it a double. I need to celebrate," Caleb replied. "I am going upstairs to change. That suit was too tight." We waited. The heavy footsteps of my stepbrother thudded on the stairs, ascending to the second floor. Then, the clinking of glass from the kitchen told us Kinsley was distracted. "Now," Rainey whispered, her grip on my arm tight. We slipped out of the closet like ghosts. We didn't run. Running makes noise. We moved with agonizing slowness down the hallway, past the formal dining room and into my father's study. I closed the heavy oak door behind us and locked it. My hands were shaking, not from cold anymore, but from pure adrenaline. "Where is it, Harper?" Rainey asked, scanning the room. I moved to the large stone fireplace. To anyone else, it was just a fireplace. But when I was 10 years old, my father showed me the trick. "A castle always needs a secret passage, Harper," he had told me. I reached inside the cold firebox and felt for the loose brick on the far right side. I pushed it. A soft click echoed. The heavy mahogany bookcase next to the fireplace swung open just an inch. We pulled it open. Behind it was a small, windowless room, my father's panic room. Inside, the air was stale. A single metal safe sat on a steel table. "Do you know the combination?" Rainey asked, shining her flashlight on the keypad. I think so," I said. My mind raced. Not his birthday. Not my birthday. Caleb would have guessed those. I closed my eyes and thought about what mattered most to Robert Sterling. It was the day he started the company, the day he laid the first brick of the Sterling Foundation's empire. April 15th, 1985. I punched in the numbers, 041585. The light on the keypad blinked red. Error. "Try again, Harper," Rainey urged. "Think. What was the one thing he told you to never forget?" My breath hitched. The memory washed over me. I was 7 years old crying because my mother had just died. My father held me in this very room and pointed to the North Star out the window. "No matter how dark it gets, Harper, you look for the light. That is our promise." The date my mother died. The day our lives changed forever. August 22nd. I typed in 0822. Beep, click. The heavy door of the safe swung open. Inside, there was no stack of cash. There were 3 items: a thick blue folder, a leather-bound journal, and a small velvet jewelry bag. Rainey grabbed the blue folder. "This is it, Harper. The independent audit report. It is dated 2 weeks before he died. It proves Caleb Vance stole $4 million from the pension fund." But I was drawn to the leather journal. It was my father's handwriting, shaky and erratic, the handwriting of a man who was losing control of his own body. I opened to the last entry. "My dearest Harper, if you are reading this, then I'm gone. I am sorry I could not protect you. I suspect Eleanor is tampering with my medication. The coffee tastes bitter. My heart races an hour after breakfast. I wanted to go to the police, but she threatened you. She said if I made a scene, you and the baby would have an accident. So I am drinking the poison, Harper. I am drinking it to buy time, to gather this evidence for you. Trust Rainey. Trust Arthur Penn. Do not let them win." A sob ripped through my throat. He knew. He knew they were killing him, and he let it happen to protect me. "Harper, look at this," Rainey said. Her voice was trembling with horror. She had opened the velvet bag. She dumped the contents onto the table. 4 gold wedding bands. "What are these?" I asked, wiping my tears. Rainey picked them up, reading the inscriptions inside. Robert Miles, 1998, Anthony Garrett, 2005, Peter Kalinsky, 2012, and, she held up the last one, Robert Sterling, 2018. "These are her trophies," Rainey whispered, looking sick. "Eleanor Vance kept the wedding rings of every husband she buried. She is a collector. We had everything. We had the financial motive. We had the victim's testimony, and we had the killer's trophies. We need to go," I said, shoving everything into my backpack. "Right now." An hour later, we were sitting in the library of a brownstone in the South End. The air smelled of old paper and pipe tobacco. Arthur Penn, my father's attorney for 40 years, sat behind his desk. He was 72, frail, but his mind was sharp as a tack. Next to him sat Detective Sarah Mercer. We laid it all out. The audit, the diary, the rings. Detective Mercer read my father's diary in silence. When she looked up, the skepticism in her eyes was gone. It was replaced by a cold, hard fury. "This changes everything," Mercer said. "We have probable cause for murder. But Eleanor Vance is smart. She will claim your father was paranoid, that the diary is the rambling of a sick man, and the rings, she will say they are keepsakes." "So how do we nail them?" Arthur Penn asked, leaning forward. "We need a confession," I said. I stood up, feeling a new strength rising within me. The grief was still there, but it had hardened into steel. Caleb is weak, he is greedy, and he is scared of his mother. If we can turn them against each other— "It is dangerous, Harper," Rainey warned. "I don't care," I said. "They killed my father. They killed my baby. I am going to make them pay." I looked at Detective Mercer. "I have a plan, but I need you to wire me up." Mercer looked at Arthur, then back at me. She nodded slowly. "Okay, Harper. Let's set the trap." The sun was beginning to rise over Boston. It was a new day, and it was going to be Judgment Day for the Vances. The wire felt cold against my skin. It was a small black disc taped securely to my chest, hidden beneath my heavy wool sweater. Detective Sarah Mercer adjusted the frequency on her receiver, her face grim in the dim light of the surveillance van parked 2 blocks away from the Sterling Foundation's headquarters. "Remember, Harper," Mercer said, her voice crackling slightly through the earpiece I was wearing. "We need them to admit it. We need specific details. We killed him is good. We put digoxin in his coffee is better. Do not put yourself in physical danger. If Caleb Vance makes a move, say the code word, legacy. We will be through that door in 30 seconds. I nodded, though she couldn't see me. I checked my reflection in the rear-view mirror of my rental car. I didn't look like a woman who had spent the last 24 hours hunting down a murder conspiracy. I had deliberately left my hair unwashed. I wore no makeup, letting the dark circles under my eyes tell a story of defeat. I needed to look broken. I needed to look like the weak, hysterical sister Caleb believed me to be. I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over Caleb's name. This was the performance of my life. I hit dial. Caleb answered on the second ring. "Well, look who it is. Tick-tock, Harper. Your 24 hours are almost up." "You win," I said, letting my voice break into a sob. "I can't do this, Caleb. I'm tired. I just want it to stop." Silence on the other end. Then a satisfied hum. "I told you, sis, it is for the best. Just sign the papers." "I will," I sniffled. "But there is something else. Something Dad told me right before he died. I didn't think it was important until now, because I didn't care about the money. But if I am going to leave Boston forever, I need to know." "What are you talking about?" Caleb's voice sharpened. "Greed is a powerful reflex. It makes you listen. Dad mentioned a trust fund." I lied. The lie tasted sweet on my tongue. "He said Mom set it up in Zurich before she died. $5 million in bonds. He said the access key is in his office safe, not the wall safe, the floor safe." $5 million? Caleb repeated. I could practically hear him calculating. "Why isn't it in the estate inventory?" "Because it is under my mother's maiden name," I whispered. "Only I can access it, but I don't have the key. You do. You have the office now." I paused, letting the bait hang in the air. "I will make you a deal, Caleb. I will sign your waiver. I will give you the company. I will give you the house. But you help me get that key, and we split the Zurich account. 50-50. You get an extra $2.5 million tax-free." "Meet me at the office," Caleb said instantly. 1 hour. "Okay," I said, sounding small and frightened. "But Caleb, can you come alone? I am scared of your mother." "Yeah, sure, alone." He dismissed me. I hung up. Then I waited exactly 2 minutes. I dialed his number again. "What now?" he answered, annoyed. "Caleb, I am sorry to call back," I stammered. "I just wanted to warn you, don't tell Eleanor, please." "Why would I tell my mother?" "Because of the rings," I said, dropping my voice to a conspiratorial whisper. "We found them, Caleb, in the secret room. The wedding rings of her first 3 husbands, Robert Miles, Anthony Garrett, Peter Kalinsky." "You are crazy," Caleb scoffed, but his voice wavered. "Am I?" I pressed on. "She killed them all, Caleb. She waited until the money was secured, and then she got rid of them. She is a black widow, and now she has the company. She has the house. Once I sign those papers, she has everything." I let that sink in. "If we open that Zurich account," I continued, "and she finds out, do you really think she is going to share $5 million with you, or are you going to have a heart attack just like my father?" "Shut up," Caleb snapped. "You don't know what you are talking about." "She used you to kill him, Caleb," I said, driving the wedge deeper. "She made you pour the poison so that if anyone found out, you would go to jail, not her. She set you up. Just think about it." I hung up the phone before he could respond. I sat back in the car seat, my heart pounding against the wire taped to my chest. "That was masterful," Arthur Penn's voice came through the earpiece. "He is rattled. I know psychopaths, Harper. They don't trust anyone, not even their own mothers." "He will bring her," I said, staring at the looming glass tower of Sterling Foundation's ink against the gray skyline. "He is too greedy to leave her behind, but he is too paranoid to trust her now. They will be walking into that room watching each other, not me." I started the car. 10 minutes later, I walked into the lobby of the building my father had built. The security guard, old Mr. Henderson, looked at me with sad eyes. He didn't know that the building was surrounded by plainclothes officers. He didn't know that Detective Mercer was currently moving her team into the stairwell. I took the elevator to the top floor, the executive suite. The hallway was quiet. The door to the CEO's office, my father's office, was ajar. I took a deep breath. I touched the spot on my stomach where my baby used to be. I touched the locket around my neck that held my father's picture. Showtime. I pushed the door open. Caleb was sitting in my father's leather chair, his feet up on the desk. He looked arrogant, but his eyes were darting around the room nervously. And he wasn't alone. Eleanor Vance stood by the window, looking out at the city she thought she owned. She turned to face me. She was wearing black, elegant and severe. A diamond brooch glittered on her lapel, a brooch that had belonged to my mother. "Harper, dear," Eleanor smiled. It was the smile of a shark sensing blood in the water. "Caleb tells me we have some business to discuss. Something about a Swiss bank account?" I stepped into the room and let the door close behind me. "I'm ready to sign," I said, my voice steady. "But first, I want to know the truth." The air in the corner office was thick enough to choke on. Eleanor Vance stood by the window, a silhouette against the gray Boston skyline, looking like a queen surveying a kingdom she had stolen. Caleb Vance sat at my father's desk, his fingers drumming a nervous rhythm on the mahogany surface. I stood in the center of the room, acutely aware of the small black microphone taped to my chest. It felt like a target. "The Swiss account, Harper," Caleb demanded, his patience wearing thin. "Where is the key?" "I will give it to you," I said, keeping my voice trembling just enough to be convincing. "But first, I need to understand. You said Dad's death was natural, but I saw the medical reports. I saw the toxicology results." Eleanor turned slowly. Her face was a mask of cold amusement. "You have a vivid imagination, dear, just like your mother." "Did he suffer?" I asked, looking directly at her. "When you put the digoxin in his morning coffee, did he know it was you?" "Shut up," Caleb hissed, glancing at the door. "Just sign the papers and get out." "No, Caleb," Eleanor interrupted, her voice smooth as silk. She walked toward me, her heels clicking sharply on the hardwood floor. She stopped inches from my face. She smelled of expensive perfume and rot. "Let her ask. She deserves to know before she vanishes from our lives." She leaned in, her eyes gleaming with a terrifying pride. "He did not suffer, Harper. It was a mercy. Your father was weak. He was old. He was holding on to a company he could no longer run. We simply accelerated the inevitable." "We?" I asked, my heart hammering against the wire. "So Caleb helped you?" "I did what had to be done," Caleb shouted, standing up abruptly. The guilt and greed were warring in his eyes. "Mom said it would be quick. She said it was the only way to save the inheritance before you ruined everything with your baby." Bingo. I felt a chill run down my spine. They had just confessed to conspiracy and murder. The recording device on my chest had caught every word. But I wasn't done. I needed to destroy them completely. I took a step back and let the tears stop. I straightened my spine. I looked at Caleb, then at Eleanor, and I smiled. It was a smile I had learned from Robert Sterling, the smile he wore right before closing a massive deal. "There is no Swiss account," I said clearly. The silence in the room was deafening. "What?" Caleb whispered. "There is no $5 million, I continued, my voice strong and steady. "There is no key. I made it up." Caleb's face turned a shade of purple I had not seen since we were children. "You lying little—" "But I do know about the rings, Eleanor," I said, turning my attention to the Black Widow. "I know about Robert Miles. I know about Anthony Garrett. I know about Peter Kalinske. I know you kept their wedding bands as trophies in the secret safe." Eleanor's composure finally cracked. Her eyes widened in genuine fear. "And Caleb," I added, delivering the final blow. "Do you really think she was going to let you live? You are the only witness to her crimes. Why do you think she insisted on you pouring the poison? So when the police came, she could blame it all on the greedy stepson." Caleb looked at his mother. The seed of paranoia I had planted earlier exploded into full-blown panic. "Is that true? Were you setting me up?" "Don't listen to her, you idiot!" Eleanor shrieked, losing her elegance entirely. She is wearing a wire. Can't you see what she is doing?" Caleb didn't listen. He lunged across the desk, not at me, but at the letter opener, a sharp, silver blade laying on the blotter. He grabbed it, his eyes wild, turning toward his mother. "Legacy!" I shouted the code word. "Legacy! Legacy!" The office door burst open with a crash that shook the walls. "Federal agents! Nobody move!" Detective Sarah Mercer led the charge, her weapon drawn. Behind her, a team of uniformed officers flooded the room. Caleb froze, the letter opener raised in his hand. He looked from the police to his mother, then dropped the weapon, falling to his knees with a pathetic wail. Eleanor was different. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. As Detective Mercer slapped the handcuffs on her wrists, Eleanor looked at me with pure, unadulterated hatred. "You are nothing," she spat. "You are just a broken girl." I walked up to her as the officers began to drag her away. I touched the locket around my neck. "No, Eleanor," I said softly. "I am a Sterling." "And I just foreclosed on you?" The trial was the biggest scandal Boston had seen in decades. Caleb Vance, in a desperate attempt to reduce his sentence, testified against his mother. He detailed every moment of the poisoning, every forged document, every stolen dollar from the pension fund. He got 25 years in federal prison. Eleanor Vance never admitted guilt. She sat in the courtroom like a stone statue, even as the families of her previous husbands wept in the gallery. The jury took less than an hour to convict her on 4 counts of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. But justice wasn't just about punishment. It was about restoration. With the help of Arthur Penn and Rainey West, we recovered the stolen assets. I sold the Florida vacation home. I liquidated Eleanor's jewelry collection. Every single cent was returned to the employee pension fund with interest. 6 months later, spring had finally come to Boston. I stood in the cemetery, the grass a vibrant green under my feet. I placed a bouquet of white lilies on my father's grave. The headstone looked clean and dignified in the sunlight. "We did it, Dad," I whispered to the wind. "The company is safe. The employees are taken care of. And Rainey is currently terrorizing the new interns in the accounting department. She misses you." A warm hand touched my shoulder. I turned to see Dr. Liam Carter. He wasn't wearing his scrubs today. He was wearing a casual jacket, looking handsome and relaxed. "Are you ready to go?" Liam asked softly. I looked down at my stomach. The baby bump was just starting to show. A new life, a second chance that Liam and I were building together. "Yes," I said, taking his hand. I looked back at the grave one last time. For a moment, I could almost smell the faint scent of my father's cologne mixed with the spring air. I wasn't the broken woman in the wheelchair anymore. I wasn't the victim on the snowy lawn. I was Harper Sterling. I was a mother. I was a fighter. And for the first time in a long time, the future didn't look cold. It looked bright.